Hello and welcome to another episode of Morrowind's Abandoned Mod Projects, where we take a look at some of the long-lost abandoned mods of Morrowind, uploaded in an incomplete state, and waiting for someone someday to pick them up again and to finish them. And just real quick, I really hope the audio here sounds alright, because as you guys might know, I have two kittens, and they're sort of in the, cable chewing phase. They've been getting on my desk, and just chewing everything in sight practically, including the mic cable, so hopefully the audio quality is the same, but if it's not, well, that might be a bit of an issue. But anyway, today we're actually going to be taking a look at a pack of mods, specifically Melchior's Old Mods by Melchior Dahrk. And this is a bit different from most of our past episodes, as these mods were specifically uploaded to be taken up by someone else, and the fact that, Melchior Dahrk is obviously still a very active member of the community. And this package of mods represents a bunch of, different mod ideas that Melchior sort of worked on between 2006 and about 2008. And, these are pretty much all open to be claimed and reused for something else, or really just finished by anyone who wants them. And these mods have open permissions, and all Melchior asks is, credit for the original mod content. And now, because this is a fairly large package, we've divided this episode up into, different sections, with timestamp annotations down below to easily jump to each segment. And you'll also find a download link to Melchior's old mods down below as well. And anyway, please keep in mind these are older mods from well over a decade ago, so you might see the occasional, odd design choice here and there. But regardless, there's some interesting content here, so join us as we go on a magical journey of embarrassing Melchior by, looking at all of his old mods, by which I mean, respectfully showcasing his mods in a purely, respectful manner. In any event, we're going to start off with Nilla Don, a town mod in the Isles region that adds a small Halali settlement just north of Plesiad, along a particularly popular stretch of, land here by Lake Maya. And needless to say, this mod will conflict with a lot of other mods. Right off the bat, I can tell you it'll conflict with Morrowind Rebirth, a Bard's Life, Ascadian Rose Cottage, and about 20 gazillion house mods. But, having said that, this is a really nice looking Halali settlement. Sort of in the, vein of Saran, with a silt-shrouded port, a main street with a temple, a set of docks and all that. I especially like the docks area. There's a bit of a verticality built into this part of the city, and overall, there's about 11 or 12 buildings here. So it's a modest-sized town, about equal to size to a major city in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, but, otherwise a normal size for Morrowind. And as we'll see here in a minute, these houses, shops, and taverns already have interiors, but, they are copy and pasted, so you may want to replace them if you're, going to pick up this project. There's also one really odd design choice here, of a Halali bridge connecting two Halali buildings, which, should probably be replaced with a proper Halali bridge instead, but that's just a minor nitpick here. Some of the landscaping here may also need to be adjusted, particularly with, texture seams and the like. But moving on, we're going to check out a couple of the interiors here, and as you can see, they're mostly, modified, copy and pasted interiors from the vanilla game, so you'll probably recognize, most of them from Saran and Balmora and the like, and these interiors should, really be replaced with all new interiors if you're planning to take up this project for yourself, but really that's up to you to decide, or whoever, ends up building onto this town. And overall, Nilla Don is a modest-sized mod that's largely exterior complete with about 12 buildings, including, copy and pasted interiors. Someone looking to take up this project would, need to add their own quests and probably, their own interiors as well. And also maybe, fix the landscaping up a bit, but otherwise, this mod is pretty close to completion, and it would probably only require a bit of work to bring it to a releasable state. There's certainly, plenty of potential here for quests or just as a simple town mod, and either way, it's free for the taking. Now, next up we have Rock, and yes, that's the full name here. This mod is just called Rock, nothing else. Though the name is probably one of those things that you'll want to change if you take this mod up for yourself. And in any event, Rock adds a new settlement to the West Gash, built by the Nordic clan of Rock, taking advantage of some nearby dual ruins to, finish the place out a bit. And the settlement here isn't very big, but it's rather, iconic in design and style, with a rather creative, exterior, including the main tower, which is built out of a massive, and gosh, I'm really getting tired of saying this, a giant rock. And yes, that's right, the settlement of Rock was founded by the Rock clan, and is built around a giant rock, and the mod name here is Rock. I just have so many issues with the naming of everything here, particularly since it seems to be designed to drive people crazy. But, ridiculous names aside, this is a really cool just location, though it does run into a lot of conflicts with well, rock replaces. This won't work with On the Rocks, or really any mod that modifies the terrain rocks of the West Gash, of which there are, several. And almost every, graphics guide, like the Morrowind Step Guide, uses one, so making compatibility patches might be, something to consider here. And heading inside though, you'll find that the Settlement of Rock is pretty much interior complete, with about 3 main interiors, including the main support building, where you'll find a variety of services, as well as the main bridge to the core tower, which houses the library, a duelist smithy, a bar, and, a fair bit more, as we'll see in a bit. And these interiors are perhaps a bit on the, plain side, but, they're otherwise fairly cozy. And notably, they're not copy and pasted like Nilla Don. The NPCs here even have some new dialogue, and one NPC, the barkeep, even has a quest for you to do, and all this has already been implemented into the game. That said, there is a slight issue here, namely that the generic new dialogue hasn't been filtered correctly, so for some reason, every NPC in Morrowind will talk about the Settlement of Rock, but, that's an easy fix to really make here. And overall though, Rock is probably the most feature-complete mod in this package, with finished interiors, a finished exterior, and even some dialogue and a quest. And there's enough details here to, build off of this and add more quests, or perhaps more of a story if you want. And really the only additional work that needs to be done is, filtering the dialogue, maybe perhaps, adding a bit more clutter and detail into the interiors. And perhaps most importantly here, changing the name of the mod, because really, the name is terrible, just like really bad, please, just change it. Whoever takes up this project for my sake, if for no one else's. But anyway, we still have quite a few more abandoned mods to take a look at here, so let's just move on to the next one here, which is Arknth Ruin. A new dual ruin in the Azura's Coast region, and a rather large one at that, as you can see here. It spans pretty much an entire mid-sized island, just a little ways past another, famous dual ruin in the Azura's Coast region. And it has a fairly detailed and cluttered exterior, unlike many of the other dual ruins in Morrowind, with various towers, bits of a collapsed bridge, statues, crumbling walls, and ballistas, and, all that good stuff. This is a pretty scenic dual ruin to check out, but contrary to what you might think, this is actually meant as a player home, and not a dungeon. And in fact, it was especially designed for a mage subject of an interest in dual ruins and artifacts, according to, Melchior's download page. But of course, nothing is written in stone. If someone were to take up this mod again, who's to say it couldn't be made into a dungeon, or expanded as a player house? Either way, the exterior here is pretty great looking, with some really cool and creative concepts, like the, the dual artillery tower here, which presumably could have been used to destroy incoming fleets or possibly airborne threats, and, all that stuff. Now, this mod does already have interiors, with a number of relatively small dual rooms for you to explore or make into your own home. But the fact of the matter here is that these interiors are a bit on the bland side. There's a few notable gaps in some of the interior cells, and a number of these are just, copy and pasted from other dual ruins with some minor alterations. Much like in Nilla Don, this is a mod that could, probably use a whole new set of interiors to go with the already pretty great looking exterior, but that's of course, subject to what you want to do with this mod. Now overall, Arknth Ruin is another mod that's already, pretty close to completion, but could use just a bit more work in overhauling. In particular, the interiors need to be fixed up and potentially replaced. And you could always add a quest, though that's not really necessary, I suppose. I mean, I would add a quest, but I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. It's just, quests always make everything better. And anyway, you could always, also turn this into a dungeon. And either way, there's a fairly good, base here to start out with. And next up, we have Fort Westmoth, an Imperial Legion fort built next to the village of Call. And it's honestly a pretty large fort, as we'll see here in the next minute or so. And the design here is really pretty interesting, with a bit of verticality mixed in with how the fort just, sort of looms over the tiny fishing village of Call. And really it seems like a well-designed fort, with multiple curtain walls and towers, providing some pretty good defenses for, stopping any would-be invaders. There's also multiple courtyards, where you'll find gardens and even a few additional buildings, some of which are doubtless, taverns or barracks or what have you. Now, something to note here, Melchior has stated on the mod download page that this particularly unfinished mod used a rather creative solution for Morrowind's wandering AI problem, because this mod was made before Melchior knew about path grids. He used dozens of invisible collision boxes to try and keep the NPCs on the road, which, as you might imagine, will cause a few issues when you play the game, and will probably need to be removed and replaced with actual path grids if picked up by someone else. Now, it should also be noted that there are no interiors here. This is pretty much an exterior-only mod at the moment, and that's really probably where the lion's share of the work is going to come from. With about 6 or 7 support buildings, the main keep, and several towers, there's just a lot of interior work to do here, before this mod is anywhere near, ready for a public release. And of course, then there's quests and dungeons and all that, because, come on! This place looks like a location that needs a good quest for 20, and of course a dungeon. But anyway, while this mod needs a lot of work, the base here is really pretty cool, and it's a good concept. It does seem just a bit strange that the Empire doesn't already have a prominent fortification along the northwestern coast of Ardenfell, and if you're up for doing a bit of legwork, this project is a pretty good sized mod to try and pick up. Next up, we have another fort, Fort Sunmoth, a mod that adds a small imperial fort just outside of Balmora, and pretty close to where Fort Moonmoth is. Now, the fort isn't finished, however. As you can, tell, it's still very much under construction, and this was actually meant as a house mod. Basically, a local contractor was hired to build this fort, but the Imperial Legion decided, on a different location after construction had already started. So now, the Dunmeri contractor that built this place is just stuck here until someone can pay off his debt. So basically, this is meant as a house mod that you, just sort of build in stages over time. But currently, outside of the intro, stages of the quest here, and the exterior, this mod is nowhere near finished, with empty interiors, though the layout has already been, added in here. But anyway, this is probably the smallest mod in today's lineup, and it probably, wouldn't be too difficult for someone to finish. The basic idea is an interesting one, and the location is pretty convenient as well, without directly being in a high-conflict area like Balmora. But moving on, we have just a few more mods to look at here, including Clockwork City Exterior, another rather small mod that sets out to provide a bit of, exterior world space, but this is sort of a, time-traveling mod because it takes place back when, Sothersil was still alive. And indeed, you can even get to meet Sothersil here, and he has a bit of unique dialogue, but of course, the real draw here is just the outside world space of Sothersil's Clockwork City. Though having said that, it isn't actually, in the outside world space. It's in, an interior cell, like, Mournhold, which you can just, wander around in. There's some pretty cool stuff here, though, with some pretty epic-looking visuals, but, having said that, I'm not entirely sure what you could do with this one. I mean, I suppose you could add a few quests dealing with the, the time-traveling nature of this mod, and perhaps expand the interior or the exterior of the Clockwork City a bit, but that's entirely up to, just whoever picks up this project again. But anyway, we finally come to the last mod in our lineup here, though it's hardly the last one in this package. And there's actually like 4 or 5 mods that we're going to be skipping over here, either because they're just really simple, or because they just, haven't aged that well. But anyway, this last one is Oshan Grotto, and it's basically a set of underwater caverns going through what seems to be a second Imperial mine of some sort, with various ruins, cards, and even a ship for you to just, find as you explore through these chambers here. And this is a pretty well detailed set of caverns, with lots of clutter, kelp, and various crates and barrels just bobbing around in this sunken mine complex, and really this is pretty much a complete interior already. There's nothing that really needs to be added here. And there's more here than just these underwater areas here, as we'll see here in a moment. There are some Imperial ruins above the surface of these murky waves, and really, this mod was meant to be used as a, a sort of player home for an Argonian character. Though I suppose it could, also work for, someone who has a ton of water-breathing potions. But anyway, moving on to the dry sections, or, the relatively dry sections of this cavern, you'll find a little almost hidden area with a small rowboat that's tied up, that's home to a set of Imperial ruins, including a small set of chambers here, which can be used as the player home part of this underwater cavern, with a set of shelving units and tables for displaying items, as well as a hammock for you to use. And you also find just a small amount of storage here, with a closet, a barrel and a chest, but, that's really about it, really. It's a pretty small player home, to be honest, but anyway, and there is one last room here, a sort of interesting cavern chamber with Imperial ruins that appears to be the home of a curious Ogrim, who can apparently just buy and sell various items with about 5,000 bartering gold, the same as Creeper and Caldera. And now overall, this is a pretty cool looking cavern complex, and while it is, currently being used as a player home, there's, nothing to say you couldn't make this into a dungeon or expand it a bit, or even just use it in a different mod. After all, there's always just a huge need for dungeon interiors in larger mod projects, and this might be a useful one. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our little showcase video here. Hopefully you found some of Melchior's old mods interesting, and perhaps there's, a project here that you'd like to take up for yourself. As always, you'll find down the links down below, so I'll see you all next time.